And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Tim Martinez. Tim, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. It's going to be a fun conversation. Tim is known as the inside man, and he has been for over like 2 decades, been working with CEOs and founders and executive teams, improving their businesses really by looking inside the business to help them maximize what goes through the business and comes out. And we are going to be talking about a lot of things, but one of the topics we're going to dive into is finding the bottlenecks in your business. Because as business owners, Tim, I know we're going to talk about this, but we are just so close to it. Sometimes we
Mhm.
can't even see them, but you
Sure.
have that x-ray vision of being an outside perspective as you've worked with lots of business owners, CEOs, and things. So as we get into this whole conversation, Tim, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me here. And the Inside Man is an acronym for Tim. So just works that
Love
way.
that. Love
I
it.
got started young with businesses, the kid with the lemonade stand.
Yeah.
Uh, by the time I was 25, I had owned a series of small businesses, really just a hustler at heart. I
Mm-hmm.
had a DJ business and a retail store, a mobile coffee business, silk screening, apparel company, built apps, built websites, and I just did all this stuff. And I got lucky and sold a couple of small businesses, and then people said, "Hey, how are you doing this?" When you're young, you don't know you're young.
Right.
And I was kind of full of life, and I was like, well, I can help you do this for your business as well. And I remember someone had asked me to help them write a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to SCORE, which is partnered with the SBA in some regard.
Right.
And I would sit down with these old timers, and they would tell me why my business plans or ideas were great or bad, and it was free. So I said, well, I could probably do that. And one day I would aspire to be one of these old timers, and hopefully I'm working my way there.
That's right.
Um,
Good ways to go.
so I charged someone for the first business plan, and that snowballed. And 20 years later, I'm just still here. And the beginning of my career was a lot of business plans, financial models, research, really just helping people get off the ground. The middle of my career was helping them beat these bottlenecks and grow.
Right.
And now, as I'm mature in my business, a lot of this is around exit planning, succession
Mm-hmm.
planning, and that whole side of the business is probably where I spend most of my time now. Whereas when I
Okay.
first got started, it was on the front end. So also I've owned and still do own a handful of businesses.
Okay.
So I eat my own dog food in some regard.
That's good. Yeah, because sometimes they don't. Sometimes we graduate from a class and we have the
Yeah.
poster on the back. It's like, I'm a business consultant. It's like, well,
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Tim's
yeah.
a little different because he's been there, he's done that, and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
So we may touch on exit plan because that's something that I think a lot of business owners really don't think about. And I think one of the reasons is they have so many bottlenecks in their business, they can't ever see this thing actually working,
Right.
right? Because they really have a job. They've
Hmm.
not crested that entrepreneurial team aspect, whether it's one team member or a hundred. It's the
Hmm.
mindset, but it's also the bottleneck. So let's just dive into that conversation as you've worked with companies. What are some of the most common bottlenecks that you've seen as you've walked into a company and you were like, wow, here are two or three, because some of them are pretty obvious, but others are a little more hidden, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a few. So I'll give you the most common one. I would call it the owner bottleneck. It's the owner operator bottleneck. And this is generally a smaller business, let's say $3 million top line max, which is statistically
Okay.
where most small businesses get stuck in America.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you're out there and you're doing around $3 million, this could be you.
Okay.
And it's okay. I'm not judging you, but typically you wanted to start a business and you invested 100% of yourself and you got yourself to where you're at because of your efforts.
Yeah.
And your efforts will cap out at some point. If you stop reinvesting in your own personal growth, you a lot of times tend to be the bottleneck. If you think of an org chart with one box and then it kind of goes down and down and down and down, small
Right.
businesses are one box and there's just a flat line underneath them and everybody reports up. So when
Okay.
you're not able to delegate or you don't have people that you trust, like truly trust, that have skills and expertise that you can hand the keys to and you can, walk away, then everything always defers to you. Also, when you have a culture where you allow people to circumvent the people that you've put in power and you
Hmm.
allow them to come back up to you, that circumvention will just, mom said I could just go to her anytime I want. So let me just go to her because dad's going to tell me
Right.
no, that kind of thing. So when we see this happening in an organization, why would someone allow that to happen? It's because they're afraid of not having control and they feel they need that. Now, you have to have control, of course. They say
Hmm.
delegate, don't abdicate the throne, right? In
Yes.
some regards, but you have to think systematically.
Yeah.
So the more systems you have in place and
Amen,
people are
brother.
following those flow charts and those step one, step two, and those processes, that's where you start to be able to get past those bottlenecks. If you think of a pipe and you
Yeah.
just squeeze one pipe, we call it a choke point. What we're trying to do is open up that choke point so things can just flow through it. So sometimes those choke points are human, right? Like the
Mm,
owner,
yeah.
or it could be
Yeah.
a bad manager underneath it that's very toxic for the organization and they want all the control and they want all the praise. It's usually some kind of human component. So we have to look at the human element, the culture. I always define culture as what we allow to exist in our organization.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like the weakest link is the culture in some regards. Um, so there's that. And then you have technological choke points. We've been operating on a CRM that was built in 1982. And
Yeah.
why are we still doing that? Or, you have these little technological challenges. Depending on the type of business, you may have physical choke points of physical systems. Like
Hmm.
we're operating off a tractor that we built in, or that we bought in 1981, and we just keep fixing it. But let's be honest, we shouldn't even be using these types of machinery and equipment. And right. So you have to look at your human, your technological, and then your physical if you're in that type of business. So
Yeah.
somewhere in there, you're going to find a choke point. Our job is to come in and say, where is it slowing down? Why have you been allowing this to happen? That's the bigger question. It's not so much what is, it's why are you
Yeah.
allowing it?
I love that question, Tim. That why are you allowing it? Because so many times, even as the owner, we want to point fingers and say, well, it's not my fault. It's not. Well, actually, the buck stops here, right? And
100%.
it's not that we have to be a dictator and come
Mhm.
out with a machete. It's that we need to own our role and go, well, that's a great question. Let's talk about that because again, that's an inside job, usually in my
Mhm.
mind of, oh wow, okay, how are we going to navigate this? And then having you come in, having all your experience to walk them through, to ask them probably more questions, and to at some level, dare I say, be a buffer for them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective. I always think about the pie chart where if you think of a pie chart, a classic pie, and you have this tiny, tiny sliver, that's what you know.
Okay.
Inside of your business. I know what I know about my business, and this is tiny sliver. Then there's a bigger sliver, which is I know what I don't know. For example, I know there's AI, but I don't know what type of AI bots, how to plug it in, what automate. I know it's out there, but I don't really know, right?
Right.
And then there's what I don't know, I don't even know. And that is the largest universe of the whole entire everything. And this is true for life, right? Of course.
Oh yeah.
So when you hire experts, we're unlocking the what you didn't know you didn't even know.
Mm,
We're saying, why don't you just go buy your competitor that does this? Why do you have to build it? I start opening these doors and these how have you let this happen for so long? They're like, I didn't even know I was doing that. And this is where you get these
yeah.
huge, huge spreads. That's my advice always, which is find smart people, hire them, get out of their way, let them do their thing,
Yeah.
and you'll just have exponential growth because there is an unlimited amount of smart people you can hire that will invest their time, effort, and energy. I'm one of them to improve your business. These
Right.
experts don't exist to not improve your business. They
That's
exist
right.
to improve your business. Right?
That's
They'd be
right.
out of business if
They would be out of business.
they
Yeah.
would be out of business. So just hire them and stop thinking you have to do everything on your own.
Yeah. And that's so good. And so many times because I can hear it now, but I can't afford to hire an expert.
Right. Yeah. And this is where we have to dissect the true cost.
Yeah.
So what is the true cost of inaction is the bigger question. It's less about ROI and it's more about the return on inaction. It's like if you don't take the action, you're gonna get this deficit. And that deficit, because businesses have cycles. Every
Right.
5 to 7 years or so, you get a peak. And if
Yeah.
you don't kind of turn it back up, right? So the inaction, you could miss your window.
Right.
You just start going down and then you'll hit a plateau. And that's okay. And some people are fine with the plateau.
Right.
But you and I both know you don't plateau indefinitely. That plateau is like a slow gradient and just keeps going down, down, down.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've not identified those bottlenecks or those choke points, as you'd call them, a business owner, we're again, we're too close to our company, right? I've been in marketing for 35 years and I help businesses grow through books and marketing. And I can tell you, I can look into any of my clients' businesses and start identifying things, saying, here's what we need to do.
Right.
I just can't do that for my company. And so we hire coaches and consultants to help us understand the market and go, no, I didn't see that.
Right.
And sometimes
Yeah.
it's as simple as changing a phrase that
Hmm.
we have camped on for years to go,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
kind of,
here's a practical exercise for anyone listening. I like to do flow charts.
mm-hmm,
And when we're looking for choke points, we just do inside of any department, you usually have five or six processes.
mm-hmm,
So I'll give you a perfect example. Running an invoice is a process.
yeah,
Posting a job description is a process, right? So you look inside of your departments and you say, well, let's just take one process and let's do step one, step two, step three, step four. And we'll see how many steps it takes to go from beginning to end of our process. Inside of that, we might find on average, most processes are about five or six steps, more or less,
mm-hmm,
right? Some are less, some a little more. Inside of each step, we're going to have how long does it take? Who's the stakeholder? And what system are we using for that one step?
mm-hmm,
We're going to use QuickBooks. We're going to use our accountant, and it takes her all of 15 minutes to do the first step. Okay, great. So when you get to the end of a flow chart, it will inform you. This process takes six steps, requires three people, takes four systems, and takes all of 2 hours. Awesome. From there, once it's clear, then we can say, can we reduce it by a step? Can we
mm,
reduce it by a system? Do we need three people doing this? Can we only do it with two? Right? You can start playing around with how to make your systems tighter and
yeah,
stronger. Do we need to add a step? Right? But you can start having these types of conversations versus always being so ethereal with everything and saying, oh, they're just not doing it the way I want it done. It's like, well, let's define the way you want it done. Let's look at every single process. This is working on, not in the
right,
business. This is when you really start to kind of go to that Jedi level and you say, okay, well, let's systemize the entire organization, which
yes,
you can do. And it doesn't take very long. I mean, give yourself a couple weeks and it'll be done.
yeah.
Just do
It,
it.
it, well, just do it. And again, having an outside person like you who's done it a couple dozen times
Yeah.
probably to come along and say, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's the template. Go, come back. We'll talk
Yeah.
in 3 days and see where we are. Because a lot of business owners don't, we just, I've heard for years, right? You got to have KPIs. You got to have a dashboard. You got to have that. And so I took a flight one time and I walked by and the cockpit was open, right? And I glanced in at the dashboard and I went, no way. And then a friend of mine said, no, dummy, I want you to go sit in my old 73 Vega. And it had like three or four things. He's like, that's all you need. I'm like, oh
That's
man,
all you need.
but
Well,
we
it's
get overwhelmed.
key performance indicators, not all
Not
indicators.
every and leading and lagging and what do we really need to be looking at
Yeah.
to know? And once my son and I, so my son Caleb's my chief operating officer, he's
Okay.
30. And he put together, I mean, systems. We've got like 163 different systems. He systematized everything in my business,
Good. Good for
which
him.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but then he brought together the key performance indicators, and we really look at three big numbers every week. And
Yeah.
he's like, as long as we're hitting these three numbers consistently, it's
Yeah.
going to get into, we're going to have enough sales calls, we're going to have enough revenue, we're going to have but these three are what we have to monitor. That was so clarifying because we were actually looking downstream a little bit
Yeah.
and trying to solve. Well, it wasn't the problem. The problem was back there. But I think we get stuck doing that.
Yeah. Well, and it's having the right talent that sees the world through a certain lens. Like you did something right in your son's life many, many years ago that allowed him to be the kind of human that got to the point to where he can identify systems. And this is where we don't invest in our people. We just expect them to perform, but we don't
Right.
invest in them. So it's like we're getting the results because of what we're pouring in. And that's a huge component. It's culture. And again, it
Yeah.
goes back to what we allow it to exist. Not everybody is built the same way. So if you look at your team and you do strengths tests or,
Yeah.
any of these, exams or whatever, and you could
Right.
find, okay, so you're a cerebral person, but you're a tactical person. I sat in this one workshop with a large organization, about 30 people that were in the executive team, and they broke everyone into these three groups. And one group was a relational group, one
Mm-hmm.
was a strategic group, and one was tactical. And this is actually pretty interesting. We were asked to pick one stakeholder of our groups to say, here's how we want you to interface with us. So the strategic people said, here's how we want, and I was part of the strategic group. We said, just stay with us. That's what we want to relay here. If we're talking to you, we're going to
Yeah.
go all over the place. We're going to go to the sky. We're going to go to the ground. We're going to hit a whiteboard. Stay with us. We're going to get somewhere. The tactical group said, just tell us what to do. We don't want to go everywhere
Right.
with you. Just tell us what to do. And the relational group said, if there's anyone on the external of the organization, vendors, clients, part, like any of that stuff, let us deal with them. You guys are not good with dealing. Let us. We'll take
Yeah.
them to dinner. We'll take them to drinks. We'll do whatever. We'll spend time with them. We'll go golf with them. Leave them to us because you guys don't know
Mhm.
how to do that. We do,
Yeah.
right? So it was good because everyone learned how to deal with it. And this organization had been together for 25 something years and no one knew this about each other.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had been working together for a decade plus together and no one knew this about each other. And all of a sudden, things that, and I've seen stuff flow a lot faster over the last couple of years since this,
Hmm.
exercise. So sometimes you just have to do things like that. Sometimes you need to do the soft side of building the people and the talent,
Right.
knowing who's on your bench.
Yeah. Well, and again, having somebody like you who understands that whole concept to know when to do it, how to do it. But what I want to move a tad bit because what we're
Sure.
talking about is business growth
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And so many entrepreneurs think business growth, more marketing, more sales.
100%. That's it. Marketing's, yeah, that's it.
And there's so much more. And you probably have case study after case study after client of clients you've seen grow top and bottom line revenue without increasing sales at all because of the way things, the bottlenecks that you've opened
Yeah.
and the way things flow. Is that fair?
Totally fair. It also goes down to what you're trying to build and what you want to build. But if you just think 80-20, 20% of your revenue is coming from 80% of your clients, or 20% of the production on your team is coming from or 80% of the production is coming from 20% of your employees. You just kind of always put things through that 80-20 lens.
Yeah.
It'll tell you and inform you kind of like your son's KPIs, like this is really where we need to focus.
Yeah.
Um, in regards to growing the bottom line or growing the top line without doing any extra sales and marketing. It's about becoming more efficient with the existing sales and marketing that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So, do we need another to run more ads? Do we need to run another thing or another billboard or another? Have we maximized what we're already doing?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
if we can maximize that, then we're going to see the exponential growth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then you add the sales and the marketing
Then
and
you
get
add,
even
yeah,
right.
exactly. Or
And
do we, because a lot of times what happens is there's a windfall. So you get you've probably seen this in your career. I've been in
yeah.
marketing a long time. Out of the blue, you get a client that's, 3x what you've ever had in the past, just out of the blue. And you're like, do we have the capacity to deal with this? Do we have the team that can deal with it? You might lose it
Yeah.
if you're not prepared for it, or you get it and it may not stay forever, or right? So you
Right.
kind of have to, we're always looking on the downside of business, because
Hmm.
we're business owners and we deal with risk
Yeah.
all day long. But we're never really putting ourselves in the mindset of like, well, what if we were to 10x the size of this thing? What would it take then?
Right. Well, and that's, I was in strategic coach for a while and they wrote the book 10X is easier than 2X and all that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that makes most business owners just knock their knees. What Dan said one time, and I thought this was brilliant, he's like, I never said you had to do it in a year. And I thought, that is so freeing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If it takes me 5 years or 10 years to 10X, that's okay. He's like,
Hmm.
well, absolutely. But it's a mindset. And one of the marketing guys I've followed for 35 or 40 years now, Roy Williams, down in Austin, Texas. He talks about what we were talking about, the owner being the bottleneck, and he said a business is going to grow to the length of your shadow,
No, that's
meaning
great.
and I've always loved that phrase, and that's why as business owners, as entrepreneurs, if we are building something, that
Yeah.
we need to bring people around us and do what I'm best at. And that's honestly, that's what my son has helped me do over the last 3 years is to do only, I'm only good at four things, Tim. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wicked good at these four things. And he's taken everything off.
Yeah.
And he's wicked good at those things. And our business continues to grow because I'm not trying to do everything.
Hmm.
And I want to move into this next area. You mentioned exit planning because I've got a vision, a plan that he and I are working on that over the next decade, I'm 59, right? I turned
Hmm.
60 this year. Over the next decade, we're going to hand this over to him. I'm still going to be in the business doing things, but systematically,
Yeah.
on purpose, I'm going to be backing away, hiring people and things. So talk a little bit about I guess the exit planning starting with, I guess, does it start with a vision, an idea, and
Sure. Yeah, so I created what's called the three exit framework.
mm-hmm,
And I believe an exit happens out in three stages. You have
mm-hmm.
to have three exits of a business. So the first
Okay.
exit is your identity. It's
Yeah.
your who am I if I'm not the CEO? Who am I if I'm not the boss? It's kind of coming to terms with I am going to leave this business
Yeah.
because 100% you will exit a business. It's either going to be on your terms or on God's terms.
That's right.
It's happening. So get clear with that, right? You cannot run this forever. So once you're clear that, yes, I am going to make this decision, whether now or 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, it doesn't matter, but I will be making this decision. It's a big one. You
Yeah.
start thinking about what you're going to do with your time, where you're going to spend your money, if you want to start other business or whatever, but you start there. The second exit is your role exit because that means if you're not going to be in the business, then someone needs going to fill in your shoes.
Yeah.
And usually with a very powerful boss, it's usually two people that kind of make the one.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. You just have to start systemizing yourself, putting
Yeah.
your standard of excellence together, like your how I see the world through, this lens and who I'm grooming. This is where succession planning comes in. A lot of organizations, we need to work two or three succession plans in tandem as well, because sometimes multiple people have equity. And if the owner goes, they also want to go. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they've been with the owner for 30 years and they're all at retirement age. So when the owner
Yeah.
go, you have to really think
Yeah.
about succession at that level, but it's this role exit and it's not only always the business owner's role. It's sometimes maybe two or three other people in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to have a succession plan that has three or four, usually your C-suite, and then their layer two. And if we can go layer three and then start working on those roadmaps to getting everybody groomed to move up over the next couple of years, that's very useful. The third exit is the technical exit. This is what most people think an exit is. Valuation, running an auction process, just doing a formal, getting together your ducks in a row, getting your
Yeah.
war room together, P&Ls and all that stuff. Most people think that is the exit, but
Yeah.
I would argue that the real exit is you getting clear on the identity first. Second, you figure out what your role and transition out looks like, and then third, it's the final exit. You have financial buyers like PE firms, and you have strategic buyers. They both want different things. Some may want you to stay in the business longer than others. There's usually some kind of earnout scenario, so you
Mm.
have to get clear of like where am I willing to bend?
Yeah.
Because misaligned expectations is the number one deal killer of all exits. And there's a
Uh,
25, let's call it a 25% success rate of listed businesses that actually sell. So one in four businesses that list actually sell. So you say, well, why? Why isn't it 100% of businesses that list for sale? Because they didn't have clean financials, they didn't have their identity in check, they weren't willing to do an earnout. There's all these different things that they thought their business was worth 10x EBITDA when it was really two. All these misaligned expectations. That's why you get one out of four businesses are selling.
mm.
What's chasing you is what we call the 5Ds. So 50% of business owners get forced out of their business. Why? Why did 50%? Death, divorce, disease, dysfunction, or distance, meaning your grandkids move to Florida and you're in California and you want to move with them. Something
Yeah.
like that. There's some geographical issue. So you have this external pressure forcing you every single day as you get older. These things are coming for you. And it's not just your own death. It could be, or illness or dysfunctions. It could be that of your family members. And that takes a lot of people out of the game. So that's why it's so important to be intentional about what you're building towards an exit. I invest in a lot of businesses. I get involved in a lot of businesses. I've never once got involved in a business and not thought about how I'm getting out of it the second I got in it.
Yeah.
I don't ever think about a job for me because then that wouldn't be true to how I see business.
Right.
I see business as an asset that produces a financial result, not a place to show up Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Right.
So I look at the exit through everything I do, through every lens, and that's why systems and all that stuff become so important. So I just gave you a whole lot of information.
You did, but that's amazing. No, I love the 5Ds because again, people don't even think about that. They're always looking at their own mortality. Well, I'm healthy. I'm not going to get. Yeah, but what
Yeah.
about your son, daughter,
Yeah.
grandchild, or something? And now, and the other aspect about the expectations is, yeah, I'm gonna transition my business. I'm gonna retire on this date. I'm gonna give up my business, and then you sell it. You're one of the lucky ones, and they say, yeah, but we'd like to have you stay for the next year, 18 months, and go,
Yeah.
well, that wasn't in the plan.
Right. So if you want to exit at 65 and you're 60, now is probably a really good time to start planning and getting that because most
Yeah,
deals, it's very, very rare to get an all cash offer with one check. Very
yeah,
rare. Not to say it doesn't happen, but They're hedging risk. The buyers are hedging risk. If I was to buy a business, I would most certainly want to do some kind of earn out with the owner
Right.
over some period of time,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to take that into account.
So many factors that play into this. So many factors that play into just running a great business. And I
Yeah.
love what you said. It's not a job where I show up Monday through Friday and have to do it. Nothing wrong with that. But to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner, you really need to be Michael Gerber. Yeah, the
Yeah.
E-Myth.
E-myth. Yep.
Dude, I read that years ago, and I
Yeah.
still
Read it
remember him.
multiple times.
You got to just hold your business out in your hand and say it's going to function without me.
Yeah.
That's a process.
Yeah.
And we need help because that's not taught in the business school I went to because I didn't go to one, right?
Right. Right.
I've
Ditto.
learned this stuff through books and talking with people like you. And there's so much your pie example. Yeah, there's so
Mhm.
much in that big part of the pie that I have no clue about.
Yeah.
And that's why we need people like you in our lives to help us take our businesses that may be very successful, right? It doesn't mean that your business is a clunker. It might just need a good tune up or
Yeah.
release the
Well,
choke.
it was Henry Ford that said, I don't need to know everything. I have this red button I could push on my desk and anyone comes in and gives me the answer.
Yes.
Right. So you don't need to have all the answers. It's okay.
Yeah,
You're not superhuman. You're not God. That's why you have all these other humans that have all this information. You just need to know how to inspire them, how to hire them, willing to take the risk on them. Know that you're not going to get a 100% success rate with every human. That's okay.
that's right.
But you got to keep trying, keep your head in the game, and then you also have to be intentional on what you're building. Not some people have insatiable appetites.
Mm-hmm.
They want more and more and more. And, Godspeed. Go get as much as you want. It's all out there.
That's right.
And some people say, I do want a lifestyle business. I do want to clock in Monday through Friday because I'd
Right.
rather clock in for myself than someone else. I don't want the headache of 500 employees. I want to build a tight family unit with 15.
That's right.
Whatever you want. You design it, but you have to do it intentionally so it's not chasing you, you're chasing it. And
Yeah.
then, you know, work with smart people like yourself and get those unlocks, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Okay, you and I'm pretty sure could talk for another half hour, probably half a day. I'm
Yeah.
guessing, because you've got enough stuff up here in this gray matter
Yeah.
to pull out, and we would have some fun conversations. But instead of doing that, let's pivot and just say, all right, Tim Martinez, how do people find you, follow you, learn about you, engage with you? Where would somebody go to learn more about Tim?
Sure. Yeah. Just type in Tim the Inside Man Martinez
Okay.
on Google or AI and you'll find me. I run a Substack. That's probably the most consistent thing I do. This blog I started a few years back. It's a weekly 1 minute read, and I just write about what I'm dealing with that week. So
Yeah.
most of the conversations that I'm putting in there, usually because I'm wrestling with something or it's keeping me up at night or I'm helping someone get through some issue, and I just try to drop my nuggets of wisdom that way. I've written a handful of books, but really the Substack is the best place. I do a lot of podcasts. I've had a YouTube channel for a long time, but I would say right now the Substack is the spot. Say you reached out to me on Michael's podcast, find me on LinkedIn. I'm always more than happy to jump on any call, anytime, talk about business and help you find some unlocks.
That's awesome. I love it. You've helped me unlock some things. Just even talking about the three exit framework and what that's going to take, and that I need to start working on it. I've got a ways because I'm not ready to slow down by any means, but there's a transition there. So thanks for being here. I'm going to grab all that information. We're going to throw that in the show notes so that you can reach out to Tim and see how he can help you unlock some things, find some bottlenecks in your business that are there. You're just not seeing them. And then, check out his Substack as well and hop on his weekly list, and you're going to learn a ton. So, Tim, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being my guest, but thanks for doing what you do in the world in just such a cool, laid back way. Um, it's just fun to talk with people like you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having
Well,
me.
you are quite welcome. Thanks for listening to Expert Speak. Tune in again next time for another great episode. Take care. God bless.